Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick. We're here to continue our series of draft countdown shows tonight. The safety group for the Ravens. A lot of people think it's not a terribly big need. On the other hand, the Ravens are stretched a little thin at safety in terms of who they have playing where, with Kyle Hamilton out of position. Here to join me and talk about not only the Ravens situation, but who they might take in the draft is Jason of Huddle It Up Films. Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing very, very well, Ken. Thank you again for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure for me too, Jason. One of the most knowledgeable draft people you'll find, particularly in terms of local people. One of the people I really look to, and we'll be simulcasting on draft day, having a lot of fun with that. And if you want a place to watch the draft, it's an awful lot of fun, is all I can say, to have our panel, a great group of people watching along with it, make all kinds of interesting comments during the show, but we'll be streaming live on all 3 days.
I can't wait, Ken. It's game days are tied for first, it's my favorite days of the year. And then it's those 3 draft days. Love it. Can't wait to be with you and the crew again. This is our 3rd year together. So it's always a lot of fun. Disappointment, joy, pain. Should we trade up? Should we trade back? What can we get? Who else is out there? Why is this guy slipping? I mean, it's never short of drama.
It is. It's a lot of fun. We had all the stuff last year with Garnett and Travis Jones' mom going on. I won't get any more into it. I'll let you go. Let Garnett tell you the story because he knows more about what's going on with those texts or messages, whatever they were. But anyway, a lot of fun. And we had Coach on last year, Coach Evans. In this case, we're talking about this a couple different people named Coach now in the Baltimore podcasting community, and just a great evening. A lot of banging on the table, a lot of yelling for our guys, but 100% Ravens-centric coverage, where the only thing we care about is how does that pick affect the Baltimore Ravens. Nothing else really matters to us, and I think a lot of Baltimore fans have found that refreshing.
Absolutely. We were celebrating when those running backs were taken. Mm-hmm. Was it a couple years ago when Najee Harris was taken, and we were happy. And so far, the Ravens have done an okay job containing him. The Steelers overall have been a pain in the butt, but I was still happy that it was one extra pick. This year, there's a bunch of quarterbacks. Will 4 go? Will 5 go? What's the situation? What's our own situation? There's so much going on, Ken. I can't wait, bud.
Yeah. It'll be a lot of fun. So a lot to talk about, but we're going to talk about the safety position tonight, get into that. The Ravens' situation at safety seems pretty darn good with Marcus Williams, Geno Stone, and Kyle Hamilton, effectively 3 guys who could probably play free safety, each of them, all on the team. Kyle Hamilton impressed into a slot corner role last season due to injury and performed at a very high level after not looking so great the first couple of games, in particular that Miami game. He had some really bad misplays, including not being on the back end when he should have been one time on I think a 60-yard throw up the left sideline. But in general, Hamilton had a fantastic season and really made the pick all that worthwhile. A pick we were very excited about, by the way, on draft night.
We were. I had him in that true first-round grade, and he was the one left, and son of a gun if he didn't slip just barely to us, thanks to the Eagles trading up for Jordan Davis, who a lot of us would have been okay with that pick too. I think it would have split the Ravens fan base between nose tackle and best player available. But yeah, the Ravens, Ken, I think are in a pretty good situation with their starting 3. As you mentioned, great point. You can put all 3 of those guys, any one of them, on the back end, and they will be able to hold their own. Hamilton had some growing pains, but that's a part of his game that you like, is his ability to play in the post. And when I'm making my list here for safeties, there are a few guys that I'm looking at that I think could pair very well with Hamilton as far as, okay, this game has a smaller, quicker slot receiver that might give Hamilton some issues. We can put this rookie safety who's really playing slot corner for us in that role. And then we'll have a guy that Hamilton can handle. We put Hamilton in that slot corner role and having the rookie play a more traditional safety. So a lot of do-it-all safeties in this draft to combine with your more traditional safeties.
Yeah, there's a lot of players that I am concerned about them moving around from position to position. In Kyle Hamilton's case, I'm just not concerned at all at this point. He's played great slot corner. We know he played great safety at Notre Dame. It's not going to be hard for him to move to the back end again if he needs to do that. It does not appear anytime soon, unless there's an injury, that he would be the free safety, even if there was an injury. As the team stands right now, I think that Geno Stone would be the pegged back end guy. Most of the time, the single high guy I would expect it, though that's not really his strength. He's really more of a split safety. But anyway, yeah, I think he'd be the free safety if that happened. Now with the Ravens, the question to me is, are they in a situation where they so badly need Kyle Hamilton at slot, which I kind of think is the case right now, that they have to really think about getting not even one, but two safeties in the remainder of this offseason from some combination of free agency, draft, and UDFAs?
I think a lot of that has to do with who's drafted before the Ravens get in a position to draft some of these guys, or if they take one of these guys as a combo slot corner / safety, because who knows? One of the things I've been pondering is maybe Marcus Peters is in the wait at left cornerback, or maybe the Ravens address a cornerback, an outside cornerback early. So you have Marlon on one side and a left cornerback on the other side, whoever it may be. How do you want to match up in the slot? There's a few very good, I think, slot only corners in this draft, but there's also a few slot safeties in this draft. And what that would allow you to do is to just play some games with having Kyle Hamilton be an X factor and be able to cover different roles in the defense. His blitzing is excellent, Ken. I think his run defense was excellent in the box. So if you can keep Kyle Hamilton in the box, but not have him say, bail your team out. You know what I mean? Oh, we don't have it. Like last year was, nobody will take the slot corner role. Our last hope is to put Kyle there, and he did great. I don't want Kyle Hamilton to be in that role, but I would like him to be freed up to do so if possible.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's kind of like in past years when Marshall Yanda really could have been the answer at any individual line position. And I'm going to not treat Patrick McCary in that way because I don't really believe he's the perfect answer at offensive tackle. I think he's a bad answer at offensive tackle who gets you through and deal with. But Marshall Yanda, he played right tackle at a very high level for a year for the Ravens in 2010. Was pretty close to a Pro Bowl player at that point, even though I think it would have been his first when he got there. But anyway, he was a guy who was always a trump card and you could move him. And the problem is you only get to play that trump card once. And it's the same thing with Hamilton. They want him on this field somewhere. There's no doubt about it. If they're forced into slot corner, that's not as good as they can choose to play him at slot corner, as you've mentioned, in some games, against some matchups as they want. It may be that Kyle Hamilton sets a new standard for what you can do with a slot cornerback, that you can use a bigger guy there, that you get all this ancillary value from the tackler and the pass rush and off the slot, and the fact that he's a huge underneath guy in zone, and that creates problems for the quarterback, and all of those other things you get are enough to offset the fact that he really can't stay with the quick guys. But we've been talking on the show before, and I think there are relatively few people who could really stay with the quick guys. I am getting some feedback from you. Do you have any kind of headphones or anything you can wear?
I can try. Sure. Just give me 1 second.
No, you go ahead. Now I'll just introduce this next segment while we go. So I guess my point with regard to additional safeties is that the Ravens might need one more, and they might need one more just to play dime, because if Hamilton's in the slot and Williams and Stone are then on the back end, that means they might need one more safety to play dime. And that would only really happen, I guess, if Queen were traded, because they seem like, or injured, because they seem like a committed nickel team right now. So they could wait to address that till when they need to during the season, even, as a possibility. Another possibility is they really want to move Hamilton to the back end, and then they need one extra safety anyway on the teams. Maybe a core special teamer who's just there to protect in terms of injuries. I guess that guy could be UDFA, since it's really rare you have three safeties who are all free safeties, who are your top three guys and can cover all your positional needs to start with. That's just a very fortunate position to be in.
Really is. And I agree with what you said earlier with Geno Stone. Probably would be the first backup to either guy if they went down. Mm-hmm. So you could leave Marcus in his place if Kyle went down, and vice versa. So it's a blessing to have. And it's what makes this safety group interesting. Like, there are some pure strong safeties in here that I have dropped down my board, because to me, that's not a huge need for the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case of like maybe who's maybe our top guy and some other guys in there who I view as slot corners, as much as safeties, they're kind of bumped up my board a little bit.
That makes complete sense. And each guest arranges his board differently. My theory always is I arrange for the Ravens' needs right now, and that in a way that's kind of short-sighted because a draft is not a point-in-time exercise; it's a 4-year period exercise. You really got to look at what chance do you have to really get a star player is usually the better question to answer, and that's why drafting BPA makes so much sense, and why it's worked for the Ravens for all these years. Is they anytime you substitute need for value, and they are competing elements on draft night all the way through on all draft days. Anytime you substitute need, you give up value, and you can only maximize value by ignoring need. It's the other thing I would say on that. So you're occasionally only are you fortunate enough to have the player who's at the intersection of need and value. The next guy on the board is really the position you really need.
In this case, though, Ken, I would say that Hamilton and Marcus Williams are locked into this team long enough to where you can find them a running partner. So, yes, I'm 100% with you. That's why we talked about on the D-line show how I'm not forgetting about defensive line on my board because it's a need way past this year. But as it concerns this group, I want a long-term partner considering we have 2 free safeties, 3 potential free safeties on this team, 2 for the long haul, that I want a strong safety / slot. And that's great because there aren't really any true safeties out there.
So a strong safety / slot. And I also put a little bit of an emphasis on a dime back. A lot of those guys are available cheap and towards the end of my board. But I still think there's a couple of guys I really love as dime backs in this group. I just love them. And it would make losing Queen a little bit less of a painful experience. I mean, obviously, the Ravens have something really good with Queen and Wilcron. I'm not bad-mouthing Queen in any way, but they don't own any piece of Queen's future beyond this year. They're not going to, give him the 5th-year money, which means he's going to walk, and the Ravens at best will get a comp pick for him at the end of this year. So there's reasonable possibility, I think, given how the inside linebacker board drops, that Queen may be traded on draft night. In a lot of ways, it would make sense to me. They could go back to a platoon at that position, have a dime back that they like, and have a 2-down linebacker, whether that might be Ross or perhaps Malik Harrison again on the weak side, that fills their need in that respect. So we've seen the play of Queen improve so much with Roquan, and it was improving before Roquan showed up, but it improved a lot more when he showed up, that I would really have a lot of confidence that Roquan is going to be able to build up the level of play of either of those other 2 gentlemen as well.
Yes, agreed. And I don't have too much else to add to that because I don't want to demean Patrick Queen, but I have a hard time seeing us paying 2 inside linebackers market value. And I think that, one thing I've been thinking about, Ken, is it's quite possible that Patrick Queen has requested a trade and we don't even know about it.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And we've seen some of the things happen on social media. I think it's possible. And I think the Ravens are happy to indulge him if the draft picks are right.
If it's right. Because if not, you just stick with that magic you had last year and just roll with it. But they're not going to give them away. But definitely, safeties are so versatile. You mentioned there's a couple of guys I know exactly who you're talking about. At least 2 of them that can play that dime safety and would look really good.
All right, my number 10 on my board definitely is one. But you go ahead and start us off here with number 10 on your board of the safeties. Sure,
number 10 on my board is actually somebody who makes the day 3 / priority free agent list. So this is one of my weaker positions as far as like the depth of it, and that's Shamari Connor out of Virginia Tech. He's listed as a safety, but he's position versatile, can play in that slot, and he can be the dime back, like you said, covering all types of targets too. Smells the big hit. He delivers. I think he can come in too hot and not settle his feet. You see some flybys with Shamari Connor. His eyes are so-so, and that can get him lost. His timing's a tad slow with it. He is a plus blitzer, and I'm not seeing the ball production, but I do see a physical box type safety who could masquerade as a dime backer. Again, not a lot of like crazy positives with him, but his body type and everything else fits. 6 foot 202. out of Virginia Tech.
Yeah, so he's on my list as an honorable mention at number 14 overall. And I did have some problems with him. And the primary reason why I'm not sold on him as the Ravens dime back is that he had a 17.3% missed tackle rate in 2022, and that's 16.3% in his career. Now, to put that in perspective, the standards are a little different depending on position. But for safety, like a median number is right around 13.5%. So safeties miss tackles. They're the last line of defense. They still miss tackles. It's very important, obviously, that they make a high rate of their tackles. It's one of the most important positions along with linebacker because they're very variable, that you make a high percentage of the tackles. So he has a decent yards per target of 6.9 in his career. 10 touchdowns and 4 interceptions is not exactly what you want to see. You mentioned the ball production. 51 college games, and he'll be 23 in July. So those are minor strikes against him, but being 23 is not ideal, obviously. If you want a possibility of a star, generally I'll go for the 21-year-old over the 23-year-old anytime, and the 22-year-old is obviously in the middle in terms of those. So Shamari Connor, definitely someone who could be, I'd be happy if he showed up at campus UDFA, I'd be thrilled. But that's the same as a lot of my inside linebacker coach class for people who listen to that list. There's some players with some really terrific warts about playing linebacker that I still think could be great special teams player, and anything you get from them as a linebacker is a bonus. I just don't want to bet a draft pick on it.
This is exactly where I am with Connor, Ken. He's 138 on my board, and you don't go through a draft where that's the highest guy left. You know, your specific team, yeah. Right? Your specific team needs, you're going to have number 110 or number 100 on your board almost every time. So 138 tells you that that's a Hail Mary if you filled all your other needs in the 7th round, say, or you'd be happy if he showed up as a UDFA. And I will say, Ken, when I was looking at the missed tackles, because they stood out to me, I think a lot of those came from a true safety blitzing the end of the line of scrimmage, trying to beat a guy to the edge type thing. And I think that if you scooted it, like typical safety missed tackles, like you were talking about, I think if you put him in the box in a more crowded area with less space, his tackling would improve from that position. But again, missed tackles is an issue, and that's not something I like from my ball players. So just to kind of counterpoint your missed tackle point, I think if you put him in closer areas, that'll improve.
It's something I've got on every safety going through this is the missed tackle rate, because it's one of the key factors I want to look at. It's kind of like not having yards per target for a receiver. You just can't evaluate a player without it, I don't believe. But I get the point, and let's move on to my number 10 guy. That's Jordan Howden of Minnesota. Now, he's not on a lot of boards, but look, I don't understand why, because he's got a lot of speed. He's at 449. He is 23 years old on May 14th, so that's not ideal. But it's 6'2", 203. He's the right size and shape. He has a very bad vertical, broad, and bench. And that guy is the sort of player who might drop to the Ravens because they're going to look more at the tape. 55 college games all at Minnesota. It's an unbelievable amount, but a lot of these COVID era players have played over 50 ball games in college, which is just, frankly incredible. He had a nice interception at Penn State that sealed the upset in 2019. That was when PSU was ranked 4th, and Minnesota was at about their all-time high water mark as well. In terms of, they were in the top 20. They might have been 17th, might have been 13th at the time, but they were highly ranked. Now, here's the thing. Here's the reason why Jordan Howden is on my list. 3.1% missed tackle rate in 2022. That was the absolute best of any safety. And an 8.3% rate for his career, which is outstanding. He is not amazingly quite the best tackling safety in this group, in my opinion. He was best in 22, but there's another guy who was even better in the course of his college career. And in fact, I believe he's one of the greatest tacklers of all time. One thing you see out of Howden on his tape, a lot of outstanding downhill play, particularly on the edge, uses his speed very well to stretch to the sideline to make tackles. He goes in, he undercuts, he uses his arms to tackle, which really corroborates that it's not just some sort of luck that he's accumulated this very low tackle percentage. It's really form that's exceptionally good, in addition to his speed characteristics and whatnot. Only a 77.9 opposition passer rating with 6.9 yards per target. What I do see is that on the back end, his reads can be a little slow. So he's just a tick late. He doesn't figure it out before the ball's out of the quarterback's hand where it's going. And you see that a little bit, or at least he doesn't figure it out as quickly as, say, a Kyle Hamilton does, to have to overcome his speed deficiencies. And we saw, when he was at Notre Dame. But he's everything you'd want in a dime back. Great tackler, underneath guy. He'd give you all kinds of value in terms of zone underneath, because he'd come from that safety perspective, and he'd understand what's going on in terms of routes off the line of scrimmage just by looking at them. He wouldn't have to turn around to figure out, okay, that's a curl and that's a dig. He would just know. So that's the good end of this. And I think Howden is a guy I would love to have as a UDFA. And if the Ravens tossed us I guess their lowest is a 6 this year, right? They don't have a 7, if I recall correctly. I wouldn't be upset if he was the 6th round pick, but I would love to get him as UDFA.
Yeah, made my honorable mention. I think he's got good safety or combo safety qualities. Like his eyes, I think they come and go, Ken. That's what I noticed with him. There are times where he sees it well, but he's not an anticipator. And there are times when he gets locked in, which is a common problem, locked in on the wrong thing and is just late picking up the ball. But you mentioned I had written down 49 starts in college. So he has plenty of experience. I think his tackling was okay. Like that number, the missed tackle rate, kind of surprises me. But I think overall he's not. I think he plays slower than the 4.49 that he ran. I think he's not as quick as you would expect as far as lateral quicks. But a solid player, somebody that made my honorable mention.
So isn't that something we see from safeties a lot, though, that there's a big differentiation between 40 speed and really play speed, because so much of it is instincts, burst on the ball, how quickly they accelerate towards what angle they take is critical. You got to be really good with angles as a safety, more than probably any other position, in terms of knowing how to get to the right spot. So yeah, I agree with you. I think we're actually saying the same thing about some of the Reed things when you're saying he's a step late and plays a little slower. I think that it's some of that same thing we're seeing.
Yes, and I would say other times I thought his eyes were good. Was my point on that, where he looked instinctual sometimes, and you could see it in different spots. I don't know that he's got the physical qualities where he could be a dime backer, but the reason he made my honorable mention and just below Connor, I guess we're kind of nitpicking on this, is that I was looking for, there's some other guys in here that I think are either more dynamic athletes or have better eyes or would be able to cover a slot receiver. So,
okay.
Good player though, I think.
Outstanding. Who's your number 9 guy?
Number 9 guy is somebody that I believe that I'm lower on than other people, and that's J.L. Skinner of Boise State. Big, tall, powerful guy. His play speed is average. He did not run the 40. I don't think he did many drills at the combine, but he looks like he could match up on NFL tight ends at that 6'4" height. The height will help him downfield. And Ken, he gets big hits without burst. Like, it's pretty amazing. A running back could be full speed, full speed ahead coming at him, and he'll get into position and just brace himself, maybe take one step and lay the guy out. Good pad level for a tall guy when he's tackling. Mm-hmm. Speed can overwhelm him, and he gets caught flat-footed, which is a deadly combo, and that's why he's lower on my list. So not only is his play speed a tick slow for me, maybe 2 ticks slow, but he's not an anticipator when it comes to the action. I think he gets caught flat-footed, almost like he's just like literally flat-footed, not on his toes. I'd see him as a better NFL linebacker, even though he's only at 209 pounds. But he mixes, yes, even at 209 pounds, his hit power and his pad level, his length, everything screams like I think that he could play a dime linebacker in there because he's so physical. Did you want to respond to that before my last line?
No, you go ahead and I'll go next. I've got a lot to say now.
My last line was he has train wreck reps with great reps, and his Senior Bowl was indicative of that play. Senior Bowl, you just saw him dominate on some reps, and then guys would blow by him. He looked like he didn't have a clue. If he checks you off the line of scrimmage, you are going flying. If he missed, he's going right past you. So it was just a too hot and cold of a player for me, Ken, to feel comfortable on the back end of my defense is kind of why I have him lower than others.
Well, I think that's reasonable. I think he could be a dime. By the way, I only have him at number 8. One of the things is he's the tweener body type where it's just not obvious where to put the guy on a football field. A big, tall guy. If he could play outside corner, I think he could be one of the dominant, players in the league. I just don't know that he's really got the speed to do that, or the ability. Well, currently the ability to read wiggle at the top of the route and not get lost. But otherwise, I think I agree with a lot of things you said. He's 22 years old. I have a time of 4:55 on him. I have no idea where that came from. Don't know if it's pro day, don't know combine, don't know what, but 4:55 is what I have. Yards per target are not particularly great career at 7.8, but if you look at his 2022 season, only 5.5 yards per target and a 40.1 passer rating against. Now he's playing in the Mountain West. The Mountain West is a gunslinging conference in terms of lots of passes thrown. Now, why is that important? He is a find the football player, big time. And they only threw at him 32 times. So he got beat some. I'm not saying he didn't get beat, but he got thrown at 32 times. He had a PD or interception on 9 of those. So that's almost a 30% play on the football rate in a year. That's outstanding. Just take it down. Immediately takes the completion percentage down to 23 out of 32, which is barely an acceptable level for a quarterback. It is acceptable, but it's barely so. Had a 12.5% missed tackle rate in his career. That really has not moved much. I don't think he really has the speed to play the back end, but in this case, it's not really the speed. It's really the instincts and judgment to take the step to make. I wouldn't want to trust him to that, but he probably does have enough speed. I really love him as an underneath guy. I love him playing slot corner, maybe in the same way that Hamilton has. I love him playing dime back, maybe. I mean, yes, will he get lost by quick guys? Sure. They lose everybody, frankly. Will he have a chance against those slot guys to bang him around? Yes. And here's an important thing. Not everybody does this, but I tell you what, if you force the other team to use their motion on their slot guy, you are taking away something from them offensively. So if they can't use their Z as their motion or their tight end, if they want to do it like the Ravens do it, or whoever else it might be to take a jet motion player, whatever, if you force them to take it on their slot, you're taking something away from them if that's the only way they can get released against a big, long player like Skinner. So I do like what Kyle Hamilton has brought to the position with that. And I think I'd like Skinner in that role too. And I know I'd like him at dime. No, I think I'd like him at dime. I don't know I'd like him at dime. This is a guy they have to draft. He will be drafted. His physical gifts are too great and too extreme that there isn't somebody out there who can envision a player in their system, a player like this in their system. So do I really believe he's going to go in the 3rd round? Like some people say, no. But could he go on day 3? Very definitely. And the Ravens will lose out if they don't draft him there. And it probably puts them out of the market on a player like Skinner, frankly.
That's what I'm thinking, Ken. If you got him at 8, I got him at 9. Other teams are going to have him much higher. Mm-hmm. And I was glad to hear that. That's what I said. I see him as a better NFL linebacker, even at 209. Like he plays much bigger than that size. And, I could see him on that weak side next to Roquan as your dime safety.
You don't need a lot of size to play the dime back. 200 is fine when you're coming in and playing on 3rd and 6 anyway. Right. You're not really facing the run very often. So,
yeah, he's an interesting player with he's the extreme, I think, outlier as far as the physical skills and what he brings in this class.
Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of uniformity of height and weight otherwise in the rest of the class and speed for that matter. But who's your number 8 guy?
Sure. My number 8 guy, another guy I think, Ken, that will go a little higher than I have him. He's number 114 on my board in that draftable category. So again, this is another guy you're looking at in the 5th round or so. And that's it. Well, I think he's going to go earlier than that. Is Jartavius Martin of Illinois. Call him Quan, an extremely fast player, 4.46 40. And I think that his play speed is, that fast. He's a 2018 recruit, 5-year player. For some reason, he only started 2 years and only played 25 games in his first 3 years. And I want to know why. Like, I saw some injury things, and then I tried to look for it again and didn't see it. So I don't know if it's just if he was banged up or COVID had something to do with it. But for somebody that runs a 4.46, I would expect them to become a starter faster. And instead of being in the program for 5 years and only starting for 2. Outstanding athleticism, but out of control, too reactive, trusted in man and in the post, but I liked him better in man. I didn't like his instincts playing single high deep. Nasty play demeanor, physical, blazed a 44-inch vertical, by the way.
Yep.
And overall, I said better athlete than player, and I like smart safeties.
Yeah, you really notice the jump show up in terms of his downhill acceleration. It's fantastic. Now, where you want it to show up is in change of direction anywhere. But he's a great downhill safety, a really good, I thought, fast to the sideline as well. So you get that value of stringing some plays out. Most of his college play has been at slot corner. Strong safety seems to be a pretty good bet for the NFL. He could, again, be one of these hybrid guys who could play either and certainly play slot in a pinch if you needed him for. Interceptions, cut a couple interceptions on tip, a couple of fumble recoveries. Definitely has a nose for the football with regard to that. If it's out, he's after it. 5.4% missed tackle rate the last 2 seasons is simply outstanding. Was not as good before, so he's still a 10.1% career. But as you mentioned, 13.5 is about normal for a safety. So it's a good career he's had as a tackler that's been outstanding the last 2 seasons. I think he gets lost in coverage a little bit. And the thing I noticed was this: when he either looks into the backfield early or peeks into the backfield, I should say, not early, or he bites, is when he typically gets lost. And everybody gets lost biting. So it's just a matter of getting better at reading that wiggle, reading what's going on at the top of the route. But the other thing I think is probably correctable is they will find better methods for him to take a peek into the backfield when in phase with the player, keep his hand on that opposing wide receiver or tight end, whatever it might be. Get your look, see if the ball is coming, and be able to check it by something more than just how you're reading the receiver looking at him. So that's something I think could be corrected. 8.3 yards per target in 22 and 8.9 for his career. Right now, those are the big numbers that kept him off my board. I have him at number 12 on my list. So he's the second honorable mention player.
There you go, Ken. I think your summary, and well, of course, my summary, I would hope that I liked it. I think that those were very good. No, just seriously though, better athlete than football player. That's, yeah. If I had to sum it up in one word, that would be it. I think that 4.46 speed is real, but his change of direction is not. And when he gets out of position, he gets out of position quickly and is not able to recover from that quickly. And maybe he's a man slot corner. You know what I mean? You just stick him in man coverage and let him go. Stick with this guy, and he can do that. And that's part of the reason with his athletic makeup that I think some team could draft him in, like, the 4th round or something like that. But he just, on my board, he doesn't make the cut. He's number 114, which is in the draftable category, which is my last line before, priority UDFAs.
So it's an interesting spot to be a man-only slot corner, because you really don't want to give away the defense. You certainly don't want to if you're the Baltimore Ravens, that hey, you're playing man. But they do have gimmick defenses now that are like the box and one in basketball, where the slot plays man and the otherwise plays zone. So it can be done. There are a lot of wide receivers in this draft. And when I say a lot, there's probably like 3 or 4 of the big ones are big slot receivers who have excelled there in college and probably would like to stay there in the NFL. And for teams like the Ravens, they really stood out like a sore thumb, because the Ravens have to use a lot of their slot snaps for their tight ends, because that's where a lot of the receiving talent on the team is right now. And it didn't make sense to me to go out and get a Cedric Tillman and rank him as high as I otherwise might on my board. JSN is another guy. He probably, I have him at 4th on my wide receiver board, but he could have been higher. But he's mostly a big slot guy. And, a guy who, if you had an answer like this guy, you would do it. Quan Martin could be a guy who would cover a big slot. And if it's man coverage all the time, well, he's got to he's got a better chance. I think some of the other things that he does to get lost by receivers, particularly downfield, can probably be corrected.
And I think the Ravens have played some of that box and one type basketball defense with Marlon. We've seen where they trust him one-on-one with their best guy and kind of fill in with zone around him. But yeah, that's just my preference. I think the guys above Jartavius on my list, like we're getting into the guys now who I think have good instincts.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. So my number 8 guy was Skinner. So we're to your number 7 guy, right?
Yes. And that's Jamie Robinson out of Florida State. 2 M's in Jamie. So if you want to look him up, it looks like Jamie. But Jamie Robinson is a 4'6" guy, basically a 4'5'9". But he's quick. He is quick. Spark plug, energy giver, plays like his hair is on fire, which, by the way, Ken, after I typed that, I think you don't want to run around when your hair is on fire. You probably want to stick it in the ground, but it's an old term. Right? Good short burst, very quick feet, average long speed, tough player, but undersized. He is 5'11", 191, making plays all around the line of scrimmage. Eludes blockers in small spaces is one of the things I've really loved. When things get tight in and around that box and there's a lot of action, he is able to duck around guards and offensive linemen and put his nose where the ball is. He showed up at the Senior Bowl in man coverage. Ken, he looked as good as the cornerbacks that were there. Not some of the aircraft carriers, as you say, the longer cornerbacks, but his quickness and feet and his hip turning. He looked like a corner when I first saw him. A lot of teams may wonder how to use him best. I like him as a slot, primarily in the slot, and I believe he could be a plus blitzer if he was allowed to do so more. So 5'11", 191, quick as a hiccup, and I have him in a cluster of safeties, number 102 on my board, also in the draftable category, but just another level ahead of Quan Martin.
All right, Jamie Martin, I have him in the exact same spot, so we got an agreement there. I have a couple extra comments about him, though. 29 and 5/8 inch arms is the big problem. 5'11", 191, that's fine. That's okay safety size. Maybe a little bit light, but I think also he might have lost weight to try and improve his combine testing, and it did not work. He had a 33.5-inch vertical, a 9'8" broad. They are both awful results. He did bench 23 times, that's grown man strength. That's for safety. That's very unusual. There are a couple guys in this class who really look to be the kind of weight room guys who've already honed themselves to a degree. And there's a couple guys who are not. Somebody who did eight bench reps we're going to get to. But anyway, bad drills with the exception of that bench number. I have a speed of 459 on him. I don't know whether that came from the combine or someplace else. But
that's a combine. If I don't have a speed, it means they ran it at Pro Day, and I don't care. So okay. I tried to get them all on the same track. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I took it from wherever, but I did try and note it where it was from the Pro Day. In any case, 7.3% career missed tackle rate. That's good. And you really see a lot of that on tape. You mentioned he would be a better pass rusher. He had 33 pass rushes this last season, 14 pressures and a batted pass. It was the best pass rush performance really of anybody on my list in the safety group. 45% pressure rate. He does a great job of selecting his gap from off the line of scrimmage. He creeps up late. He's on the end of the line of scrimmage like Ed Reed was at times. I just like a lot of how he does this. And most of Robinson's game, frankly, is around the line of scrimmage. That's where a lot of his value is. So having him creep up. He's another guy I think would make an outstanding dime back. If he can be a slot corner and give you the other value there, maybe you can overlook some of the coverage weaknesses that's there. He's not an exceptional guy in terms of top of the route. He would be. It's not really a press corner either at his size, with that arm length, or at his size for that matter. But he would be a good guy to have in some man concepts, or even in short zone off the slot, where his coverage weaknesses are going to be hidden and his tackling strengths and pass rush strengths are going to be maximized. So whether that means slot corner or dime, I'm okay with either. And he's up there. And it does actually kind of meet the Ravens' need. I think he's not quite as good as some of the other players. 7.0 yards per target career. That's okay. That's right in the middle of the pack. 84.5 opposition passer rating. That was better in 22. What else did I have to say it? He had the big plays that helped Florida State to a Cheez-It Bowl win over Oklahoma. They've gone too far with these bowl names. I thought it was bad when Maryland won the Poland Weed Eater Independence Bowl, and this is probably 30 years ago now that this happened. And I thought they have got to fix bowl names. They can't be product names and have a Cheez-It Bowl in Oklahoma, which is a great organizational win for Florida State to beat Oklahoma in a bowl game, but terrible name for the bowl game.
You know what, Ken? I've never been so thankful for M&T Bank Stadium right now. I'm so glad that partnership, because you imagine going down to the Cheez-It. Let's go down to Cheez-It Stadium. No, but
the cracker.
Hey, the other point I want to make about Jamie Robinson is I love his fit in here. I think that he struggles against bigger targets from the 3 games that I saw. And then when I match that together with his Senior Bowl, where he was going up against some smaller guys or receivers, you know what I mean? Not tight ends. I really liked what I saw. So when you're talking about matching a guy up with Kyle Hamilton and Geno Stone, if you want to put Kyle in the slot, you put Geno Stone at strong safety. If you want Kyle at strong safety, you can put a guy like Jamie Robinson in the slot and give you that pure slot corner. You mentioned his blitzing. I thought that he could have been asked to blitz more, because I love what I saw in his change of direction. And the last thing I want to come back to again is, because you didn't touch on it, is his ability to maneuver in the box with a lot of traffic going on and just slither his body around. And like, for a guy that doesn't, like, you look at his body and you don't think he's a big hitter, he brings a little bit of that pain. Maybe that goes to his bench press number or something, but like, he's a very good tackler, and I think he matches up very good against quick targets. So I see the fit, like the fit with this team in particular screams Ravens to me. And if we even took him like in the 4th round, which would be way high on my board, but if you're drafting him to be a slot corner, I don't think that's where Tavon was drafted, for instance. I don't, it might be a reach. I'm sure I'll have many other players ahead of him, but I wouldn't throw the headset and be upset. Like, I can see where they would be going with drafting him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be. That would be a very safety heavy way to go. Even if they drafted the aircraft carrier in the 1st round, it'd be a very safety heavy defensive backfield they'd be looking at putting on the field. But that's I wouldn't be either really bothered by that either, and I'd like to get him later, as you mentioned. But once you're talking about that point in the draft, you're not talking about huge amounts of draft capital differences, but you do want to get value. And you like you say, you probably have a defensive lineman you like, and Siaki Ika, if he's competing with Jamie Robinson, are you unhappy that they draft Robinson over Ika?
Right, like I have Ika, I'm sure, higher on my board. I think he's in the 70s or something.
Yeah.
But if we drafted Robinson, I'd be like, you know what, he's probably going to be more useful this year at least than Ika would be. So interesting, very interesting.
Could be. I wonder if we've got the same top 6 guys, because right now I think all of my top 6 are probably going to be on your list, but we'll see. Let's hear your number 6.
Okay, so I feel like I'm low on this guy because I see him go in the 3rd round and such. And that's Jordan Battle from Alabama, 6'1", 209. Senior, he started as a true freshman, was a top 100 recruit. So, excuse me, Ken, highly recruited coming out of high school. What I noticed last year, and this is something that stuck with me, is in some of the big Alabama games, and of course I wasn't writing this down last year. Maybe I should get in the habit of doing that. But his angles got him in trouble on the back end. And that's something that stuck with me and carried over to this year. So I think I was a little tough on him when he was asked to play in the back end. Of course, Brian Branch, played alongside of him in different roles. So good size, good instincts. His play speed varies, but his physical demeanor doesn't. He's a very physical player. More enforcer than playmaker. He's got 6 interceptions and 10 passes defensed in 52 games. I see him as a split safety, a box safety, man on tight ends. And, he could play that linebacker role too, Ken, with his physicality.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm sure he has played some single high at Alabama, but I think most people would say that the real question for him, the break point, is going to be whether he can play the back end split and maybe show the better instincts, which really translates to better angular movement, quicker movement to get started, to get to the right spot. There are some. So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what's your feel on that, Ken? Like, do you think he can split? He'd be okay at split?
Speed is there from the combine at 455, or maybe that was his pro day. Actually, I don't know where that was measured.
It was
But 450
combine.
great.
Sorry, yes.
So 455. That's good enough for me. In terms of some of the things of recognition, there will be things that can improve in terms of recognition. Now, you'd rather he be Kyle Hamilton's coming out of school and be way better than his speed, but on the other hand, the speed is the thing that's not going to completely desert him, and the other thing can get better. So I kind of like having a safety with something he can improve at the pro level. And I actually have battle number 2 overall. So This is where we have a point of divergence here. I thought his downhill pursuit is just outstanding. He's right there on stretch plays. So often he's early. Now, that Alabama defense can afford to completely trust each other because they're all so good, but he is just outstanding at being there. Weaves right through any kind of screen blocking traffic. They just don't have time to set up against him. I think he's a great answer for opposing tight ends. Now, there's a lot of guys who are in this category, but at 6'1", 209, he's big enough. He's physical enough. I think he's instinctive enough that that he can stay with the tight end and particularly down the field be a guy who's not a problem, or a linebacker might be. Not quite have the same speed, not quite have the same ability to play on the ball. His career interceptions, I looked at all of them. He had a deep goal line underthrow versus Duke, an undercut on a slant. We're getting to the point here at the end of this, but I'd like to see if there are common threads in sets of good plays. But anyway,
absolutely.
Deep goal line underthrow versus Duke. That was just basically a gimme interception at the end of a game. Undercut slant. That is so rare for a safety to make that play. It's a very difficult one. It's something Ed Reed could do. You almost have to be breaking on the play in advance as a robber to do it, and that's what happened in this particular case. Had no help on the play, so it was almost like the defense was set up to make that play to start with. He broke right on the route. The quarterback bit on it. Interception. Undercut a 7 route. Really baited the Mississippi State quarterback in so doing. He was playing off ball. It was another case where Alabama appeared to have nobody in defense, but Battle was moving towards the action at a speed necessary to get there before the ball did. Anyway, undercut the route and did a great job on that. A deep goal line underthrow versus Mississippi State. That's kind of similar to the Duke. It was an end of game thing. Undercut a slant with outside help in Georgia. Great opportunity to use the back end of the bracket to your advantage. So you're not always the back end guy. When you're a safety, you could take the choice to try and undercut that route if you know you have help from that corner to make the tackle if you have it and misses. And then another good one. He diagnosed a wheel route on which he really became the receiver against Kansas State. So the point of this is, why did I go through all of that? 6 very different interceptions from Jordan Battle, which showed a lot of awareness all over the field in terms of what was going on. He knew what was going on. He knew how to make the play when it was given to him. He knew how to make the play when the defense was designed to have him get that play on the robber route, on the outside, on the 7 route. And he knew how to play man coverage when it was necessary on that wheel route. So just very impressive in terms of the variety of things he did. I think instincts are going to be the thing that we need to see better at the NFL level. It just needs to be, probably a third or a quarter of a step quicker in terms of getting off the blocks, and then he's got the other athleticism to get there right now. So I think he'll be fine on that. His career college coverage statistics are outstanding. 5.5 yards per target, and that's on 111 targets in a whole lot of football games. 5 touchdowns allowed, but 6 interceptions. Just been a hell of a safety in college. And I know he's playing on a great defense. Context is important, and he's playing with players he can trust all the way around him. It's not like he ever has to pick up where somebody else has dumped a bucket of crap on the ground, as will happen in a lot of other places. But I like him a lot. He's my number 2 guy.
There you go, Ken. Yeah, I'm still scratching my head how he played 52 games and only had 5 or 10 passes defended, credited to him. And I apologize for interrupting there, but I was really stuck on whether he has the instincts to even play split safety in the back end. Like it's his instincts, and then his angles, I think, get him in trouble on that.
Yeah, great point. And it definitely is the question about him, I would say. So we're up to, I believe, my number 6 guy, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And my number 6 guy is Jair Brown of Penn State. A lot to like about this guy. And a lot of these guys in this general range, I really liked for different reasons. But he's 5'11", 211, 4.47 40. You could tell me if that's a combine or not. He is already 23. He'll be 23 years, 8 months when the season begins. Effectively, that's old. You don't really want that. He is primarily a ball hawk with 10 career picks, but all of those came in the last 2 seasons. So if you could arrange it, you probably would rather have 10 in the last season. But if you could arrange it, otherwise you'd put them all in the last 2 seasons somehow. Variety of playing for the overthrow, undercuts, robber plays, does a really good job of playing his reads. That entails some risk. And I think in general, at the college level, he's gotten paid off for it. Now, you do face better quarterbacks at the pro level. And one of the questions for Jair Brown is going to be, can quarterbacks successfully look him off regularly and make him not be gambling when they know he's the big problem? You know, Tom Brady always wore the arm bracelets that said, always wore it, but he wore it once when they took a picture of it, said, find 20 on every play, when referring to Ed Reed. When somebody knows who the Dark Lord is back there in the secondary, and they're going to be looking at that guy regularly, you know, or trying to look at the receiver who's closest to that guy, maybe even more likely, you know, how Jair reacts to that will be an interesting thing. So I do think he'll end up on the back end for some team. Has kind of a high missed tackle rate, 13.9% in 22. That was actually the best of his college career, which is 14.6%. Otherwise, 67.1 passer rating against him in college, which is terrific. 4 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And what else do I have? Oh, yeah, this is an interesting point here. 442 total college yards allowed and 226 interception return yards in his career.
There you go.
That's a net of 1.8 yards per target if you want to look at it in that other phony baloney way. Rarely a factor as a run fit player. He does do some good downhill tackling in the passing game, but he's not like some of the other tacklers. Battle would be in this category. So are other guys who are so fast coming down into the box from that free safety position to make a tackle.
Yeah, you know, just turned 23 is one of the negatives, but my main positive with him, Ken, is he just reeks of IQ. Reeks of IQ was one of my lines. He's around the ball a lot, and he's a stat sheet filler. You know, sacks, tackles for losses, interceptions from the post, interceptions in a couple of different ways when I watched his highlight tape to see how he got all his interceptions. I think he can body up bigger backs, but tackling isn't what I like. It's more of his instincts are as good as it gets at the college level. And I believe that if he had more speed and more burst, he'd be a slam dunk day 2 pick. And he probably would have came out last year, you know, but lots of good. I think he can be a little over aggressive reading the quarterback, but a lot of great safeties are, they just trust their instincts, and it's a lot more good than bad with his aggressive reading. So, you know, I love Jair Brown. I have Jair Brown, Jordan Battle, and Jamie Robinson all very close on my list. And, you know, he's one of my favorite players, just nose for the ball type of guy in this draft.
So where did you have Brown?
I had him at number 5. So I guess you had Battle at 5, right? No, you had Battle.
I had Battle at 2.
Yeah. So I had Battle and then Jair Brown at number 5.
All right. Outstanding. Jason, always a pleasure talking football with you. We're going to come back and talk about our 5 through 1 guys on the second half of the show. But before we do that, tell folks where they can find your work online.
Sure. Huddle It Up Films. You can find me on YouTube. You can also find me on Twitter at Huddle It Up Films. Just did a show with our friend Vaz and Yuri, where we did a hard countdown of our top. We called it the Sweet 16, but basically our top 16 guys in the draft, Ken, because we weren't counting quarterbacks. And of course, there's always wild cards. So a lot of people are like, okay, well, would you take Joey Porter if he's there? Well, sure, but who else is there? So we wanted to put a hard order to those guys at the top. And it was fascinating how each of us interpreted needs and, you know, what's a need for now? What's a need for later? Do you take the stud cornerback if he's there? And we just took it straight from the top. So we had a good time on that show. Also did a show with Alec Polianis going over my entire big board, which was a great show too. So catch me on YouTube or Twitter.
Highly recommend you do that. And Jason will have his big board on our simulcast on draft night. Want to encourage people to join us for that. And definitely a lot of fun. And it is like a big family, you know, sitting down to watch football together. People who a lot of respect for each other, I think, in terms of draft knowledge, but also just great football fans, and a lot of fun on that night.
ton of respect. And like I say, football is family, because it really does feel like that. You know, my family isn't into the NFL draft. They're they're Ravens fans. We watch the games together, but it's hard to find peers when it comes to studying prospects and really getting into how every pick affects the Ravens. So, I mean, yeah, you guys are like family. I wouldn't want to be with anybody else on draft night.
All right. Outstanding. Other facts out there. If you want to be on a film study short, hit me up. Topics are open right now. We're pretty much done with any pre-draft stuff. There won't be time to do one. But if you have a post-draft analysis show you want to do, that's fine. If you want to talk about any kind of roster building during the offseason, or how the Ravens ought to look at UDFAs, or any of that kind of thing, that's fine. And there'll still be free agency going on. And if you have targets for the Ravens that might make sense after draft day, that'd be kind of a good show to do. I'll be doing play shows of that one play still for the rest of the summer. And then we'll also be doing 2 players per person, a number of shows on that. If you would like to be involved in that, send me a DM on Twitter. I'll see if I can find a slot for you. But it'll be about 26, 27 shows. It's a good way to cross-sectionally look at some of those position groups and what's going on, get some different opinions on each of them, rather than having just one person do the position group all by themselves. Jason, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate you.
I'll talk to you next time on Film Study.